Joining us now, a Democratic member of the Judiciary Committee, Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. It's great to see you. A lot to talk about.
That was a very powerful ad. That was incredible.
It really was. I was riveted. Looking ahead at the debate tonight, it's just, I mean, the circumstances are unbelievable. The White House is in the middle of an outbreak. I'm trying to think of how Mike Pence defends that. And any concerns you have about the debate happening, given that the White House is in the midst of an outbreak?
Well, I'm glad the debate is going forward. Kamala and I got to be close friends on that campaign trail, and I know she's going to do a really good job tonight. She's someone that shows grace under pressure, and that's what you want in a leader right now in the middle of a pandemic. And at the same time, we know Mike Pence is a good debater. I happen to be sitting in the front row of his vice presidential debate with Tim Kaine. So we know he's a good debater. But what Kamala has on her side are the facts. She's got on her side the facts that she and Joe Biden have a plan to not just build back better when it comes to our economy. Moody's just gave the numbers that their plan would create 7 million more jobs than the one put forth by the Trump administration, but also the mismanagement of this pandemic by this administration. So Mike Pence may be a good debater, but the facts and the American people are on the side of truth and justice this time, and that means Biden-Harris.
Has there been a lot of debate prep amidst all this chaos? Any sense, or what do you think the strategy should be moving forward for Kamala Harris tonight?
Well, I think she's just got to make the case for Joe Biden. That is important, and she's good at doing that. And I somehow have a feeling that she won't be interrupting the moderator 145 times like someone did in the last debate. I think you're just going to see her calmly putting forward the case for why we need a president who has compassion, why we need a president who is going to be able to govern with competence and actually put in place a plan when it comes to COVID. And that means a national testing strategy, that means following the science, and that means contact tracing. And then that gets us to a place where we can have our businesses open more consistently. I just saw a study by Yelp, 800 small businesses a day are closing. And this president just announced he was withdrawing from any negotiations on a COVID package. I think that just gives you the sense of the chaos that we're seeing over in the White House.
Senator Klobuchar, it's Willie Geist. Good morning. I want to pick up on that point about the president announcing on Twitter that Republicans should withdraw from these negotiations about a COVID package. He saw the Dow collapse. I'm sure he heard from Senate Republicans who said we can't do that. And then he came out and said, OK, well, let's do a standalone bill that gets a $1,200 check to American families. What is your assessment of where these negotiations, if we can call them that anymore, where they are, and what are people in your state? I just asked Senator Coons this about Delaware. What are people in Minnesota telling you when they own a small business or their family is struggling and they've been waiting now for months for these negotiations to be resolved?
I think they're actually quite in shock because they saw Speaker Pelosi valiantly trying to reignite these negotiations with a recalcitrant Republican Senate. And she got a bill passed that was significantly less money than the original bill, but she was still willing to move forward. And the Democrats in the Senate want to move forward, and the White House seemed interested. So I thought, OK, here we go. And the bill that she passed actually has that relief for restaurants, for stages, for theaters, and for small venues, for music, in addition to, of course, the testing and the help for small governments and everything else that we need across the country. It's all in there. 33 states are seeing spikes right now. So what happens? In the midst of this pandemonium, the president backs away, probably doing the bidding for Mitch McConnell. And now, seeing the stock market tank, this is all just predictable. He starts just tweeting stuff out. Oh, let's do this standalone. Let's do this standalone. We have a package ready to go, and it's on the White House and Mitch McConnell to come to the table again. And meanwhile, they have chosen to use the precious time for the American people right now to ram through a Supreme Court justice instead of getting help to Americans during this pandemic. So it's simply outrageous.
Are you, Senator, and your Senate colleagues resigned to the distinct possibility or maybe even the fact that there just won't be a deal before the election, unless a new president comes in, unless Joe Biden is elected, that the people of Minnesota will sit here for another 3-4 months without COVID relief?
I just can't resign myself to this. I know neighbors and friends juggling their kids on their laps while they're trying to do work, schools opening and closing, people that don't have broadband. I don't resign myself to anything. And if they're making us come back for this hearing after deeming the Senate unsafe, and that's why they shut it down, that's what I'm going to ask them. So why aren't you working on COVID relief right now instead of doing this? But that's where I'm headed next week, is back to Washington, not to help the people of my state, but to do this. It's just wrong. And believe me, we're going to keep pushing them. So no, I'm not resigned to anything.
So let's talk about the hearings, the potential hearings to deal with Judge Amy Coney Barrett. The Republicans want that to happen. There's a lot of barriers, self-created, self-inflicted barriers, including a lot of people getting coronavirus from super spreader events held by the White House itself and the president himself. And yet they want to keep going. What is your position on that? I mean, it is a constitutional right. I mean, they're going back on their word as to whether or not they would do this so close to an election, but it is, their lawful right, I guess. But how physically possible is it to try and get this done?
They right now have 3 of the members of the Republicans in the U.S. Senate have COVID, just coming down with it, by the way, last week at the end of the week. We didn't find out about this until Friday. So now we know that they have COVID. 2 of them are on the Judiciary Committee. It's unclear if they are going to be there. Of course, they should not be there. And so we have called for a delay of the hearing. The hearing should happen after the election. That is the precedent that Senator McConnell set, that the people choose a president, and then that president in an election year should choose the nominee. We are still holding by their precedent that they set and calling for a delay in addition because of safety reasons. But people don't always, these guys are doing lunches. They take their masks off and they have lunches. So we don't even know the full extent of how many people are still sick. And that's why we believe there should be a delay to the hearing.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.